Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Ask an Angel with Jonathan Hung. It's my pleasure to have Ryan Quinn, the co-founder of Bougie Bakes, with me. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan.
Yeah. Let's definitely get into your story. When was Bougie Bakes founded?
Bougie Bakes was founded back in. So I'm the co-founder with my wife, Meg. Bougie Bakes was as part of our wedding prep. So in traditional preparing for the wedding, we were trying to eat right, exercise, and we were doing a good job of that. But at night, we were falling victim to our sweet tooth. So for me, it was
Mm,
cookies. For Meg, it was ice cream. And so Meg had hired a nutritionist at the time, and we asked her, was there any ingredient profiles or anything that we could make ourselves that would fit into the parameters of her diet and that satisfy our sweet tooth? So actually, the original Bougie Bakes product was not actually a business. It was just products for us to eat and for me not to have 25 Milanos a night.
That's great. Um, so what would you say is the burning problem you're trying to solve with Bougie Bakes that's different from other companies in CPG?
Sure. So I think when we were doing that wedding prep and up until this day, we tried a
Hmm.
lot of the products that were out there, and they could very much tell and taste like they were better for you. So we don't follow
Hmm.
any specific diets ourselves. We just try to generally eat better.
Hmm.
Um, it wasn't enough for us, so we decided to go out there and make it. So taste was first and foremost and then once we had it ourselves, sampled it, and then looked at it from a business standpoint, that's the recipe to fit in um, into the market, but obviously still tasted very good.
Okay, wonderful. Um, Now, I'm sure you get this question asked a lot, but I'm just curious, team is so important, right? And you're working with your wife. How do you strike up that personal versus business relationship? How can you do it and how some people can't?
Yeah, so Meg and I actually, on my first day at my first job out of college, always worked
Mm,
together. Not so much for our own company, but we've worked together in some capacity. And one of the things together was the fact that we've always been entrepreneurial. So
mhm,
right before our wedding, we were working on a photography app, a mobile app. That could be another conversation, but eventually we decided
mm,
to work out and we were looking for the next business venture. So that's how it came to be. Why I think it
mhm,
works so well for Meg and I that we each have a different unique skill set. So I've come from a background, Meg comes from a product development standpoint. So we've been very cautious to segment different parts of the business to to Meg, to myself, so we're not constantly butting heads. We do butt heads, and that's
right,
normal. But we have
right.
our and we come from a background of wanting to create our own business, so it's not something that was forced. We naturally fell into it, so it
Hmm.
works quite well. But we do find ourselves sometimes, watching Netflix or watching TV and pausing and like talking about the business. So we're like,
Mm.
maybe we'll take this off and just enjoy the show for a change. So there are points where you need to take a step back and say you don't need to think about this 100% of the time, but it is tough. But
Right.
generally, it works quite well.
Wonderful. And so, obviously, besides working with your wife, please let's talk about your team. I think in the early stages, it's really about the team more than so than the idea. The idea,
Yep.
but you have a team to help execute. So, I'd love to hear about how you built your team.
Sure. Yeah. So for a while, it was just Meg and I doing all aspects while
Hmm.
working full-time jobs. So it was a little
Hmm.
chaotic. When
Yeah.
I said we didn't bump heads back when we were doing everything and working, there was a lot of head bumping. Um,
Yeah.
but so as we grew, we were able to hire the team. We interviewed a lot of people from the production standpoint. We had a specific skill set in mind, wanted both to meet them, wanted to meet them in person, have them come in. So I think, process of elimination, having what the role is and being upfront and honest with the individual really helps. So we've had
Mm.
most of our kitchen staff steady for the last 2 years. So we don't really have any turnover, people quitting or getting fired. So we do a good job of that. And then from the back of the house business, um, we try to have everybody that we full-time work for us on a project or freelance type basis. So you're seeing not so much what they've done in the past, hire them for the project, but you see specifically on your business, working with you and your team, what they're capable of. Formula has worked well for us in that when people do come on full time, it's not starting from scratch. They're already aware of the brand. They've met everybody and ready to hit the ground running right off the bat.
Got it. Great. Thank you. So let's switch gears and talk about fundraising. I know it's always the most favorite topic for an entrepreneur. I know we just want to just grow the business, but you know, it's always an issue, always a concern. How have you found your investors? What do you think your process would be? What would you tell people out there?
Yeah, so I'm lucky in that I've spent my whole career in sales. So doing cold outreach, cold emails, cold calls, LinkedIn, Sales Navigator are my bread and butter. So that's almost second nature to me, that I'm able to pretty much find anybody's phone number or email address with, some advanced search or, reach out to them on LinkedIn. So I would say the majority of our investors are people that we reached out to cold. Obviously you got a lot of no's and you have a lot of conversations that don't go anywhere, or a conversation leads to another conversation. But anybody within the space that you found, we've been very happy that they've, one, been helpful, and also been able to introduce us to other people. So while an initial conversation may not go completely your way, or they may not end, some of the time they'll introduce you to somebody who can introduce you to somebody else, and you build those relationships, and you could get a check down the line, or you could get a check from someone that introduced to. And then we've also been lucky. Some of our investors have reached out to us, so that's been great. We're getting our name and our product out there, and they've become fans of it. And that's best case scenario. Obviously, that's not going to happen most of the time, but that does happen.
Right. No, wonderful. And what would you say is your ideal investor? Someone who's hands off, like, because not all money is good money, right? You want to find a partnership.
Totally. I think a combination of hands-on and hands-off is perfect. If you have too many people who are hands-on, there's going to be butting heads from an investor standpoint. They may not all agree with your vision, but having all investors who are hands-off, you don't really get that advisor strategic, advice and capabilities. So I think a combination, ideally, of both is ideal. You want to be able to stick to your vision of what you think the company can and should. You want to bring on people who have seen, either from their own standpoint, built things, or seen enough companies grow that they can give you advice of what not to do, or this. Every company is different, but there's a lot. So a combination of both is a perfect scenario.
Great. Let's dive into your business model. So, I know that Bougie Bakes is focused in the beginning of just doing, right, and having the website and buying the goods. What has been your thought process of that versus traditional retail, or how do you do something going forward with omni?
Sure. Yeah. Launched the business from a direct consumer standpoint. Up until this point, high 90% of our sales are direct to our website. That is strategic in that we want to customer journey. We want to have access to our customers' information. To a big component is reaching out to customers and what they like, what they dislike, what they want to see from us. Small brand, I think it's important to learn from supported you from day one or early on. So we get a lot of good advice direct to customers. A big aspect of and shipping directly to our customers is that we're fresh baked, free goods. So we don't have that 6-month year shelf life that could sit on a store shelf. So it's been a big push from a direct consumer standpoint to keep our product and fresh as possible. And the third component of that is, we wanted to design a beautiful experience from the to a tasty product to a beautiful package box. And obviously on a store shelf, that's other aspects that go into that, but from a direct to consumer, we have that down. And to your point, heading into 2022, we've expanded the product offering beyond just human cookies. We actually have dog cookies now. So those are retail ready. So expect to see those
Mm-hmm.
on store shelves soon. Those have a 6 month shelf life. And from a product development standpoint, we are actively developing products that will be retail ready, and hopefully you guys see them very soon in 2022.
Wonderful. Let's talk about how you do marketing. Obviously, with direct consumer, you focused on using Facebook and Google, right, the traditional players. But obviously, Apple's
Yep.
made some, with their
Right.
iOS. And so, how do you, as a direct consumer business, try to choose that comes about with direct consumer marketing? And what
Yeah,
do
I
you think is
wish
the best?
I wish I had the golden answer for you, because
Yeah.
everybody would be watching this video. But when we first
Mm-hmm.
started, we almost had it easy in that we knew
Mm-hmm.
almost exactly that $1 into Facebook or Google, we know how much we would be getting out in sales. And to your point, a lot has changed through this
Yeah.
year and into next year. So I think it's constantly testing. It's
Mm-hmm.
your messaging, your creative, your account, build everything, and being quick to pull the trigger on working, and something that is working, ride that until it doesn't. So, whereas we would count on Facebook or Google, once or twice a week back in 2020 or 2019, we're looking at it every day, multiple times a day, looking at what we're doing in terms of creatives, the ads that we're seeing
Mm-hmm.
beyond Facebook and Instagram, and Google. The days of the direct brand in general only advertising on those platforms has sailed. So looking at the TikToks of the world, building out your SMS list, honing in on your email marketing list, and segmenting it out, relevant messages get into relevant customers at perfect times. And that's a benefit of being a direct consumer brand, is we do have a email and SMS list,
Mm-hmm.
but also completely thinking outside the box. So we're at Bougie Bakes doing some billboards and some opportunities in 2022. So real world
Mm-hmm.
activation, obviously with the end result, trying to drive people to our website, but get out, and getting the brand out there beyond just people's.
Right. Wonderful. And obviously, Bougie Bakes, you're building on your brand. What are your thoughts on branding? Like, what do you think the exercise is? Is it just spend as much money as you can and raise as much money as you can to go brand, and make sure people know, just like Red Bull, or how do you see branding when it comes?
Yeah, we've been very, for lack of a better term, cautious in all of the
Mhm.
money that we spent in terms of brand marketing, direct marketing. We really want to run a profitable business. So we've done a good job up until this point of building a brand, whether that be from our organic post on social media, from our merchandise or
Mhm.
our packaging, and a lot of that is not me. That's my wife Meg, who runs that aspect of the business. So she's done a great job of that. But I think this year has opened us up, going back to the iOS changes and going offline
Right.
and experimenting with different types of marketing. That there
Mhm.
are aspects of your marketing budget, even as a small brand, that you don't need exact return on ad spend from a positive standpoint, direct sales as a result of that. If you're playing the
Mhm.
long game, there will be things that ultimately will be you attribute sales directly from it, but down the road it'll be, you just have to be selective and really do your research in terms of what those are.
Mhm.
Um, while a Red Bull is every athlete and everything, they also have a ton of
Right.
money and have been around for
Mhm.
a many number of years. So while that's, as a young up and coming brand, that's
Mhm.
unreasonable. So it's just balancing the two, and I think PR is a big component of that. We try to get as
Mhm.
much earned media as possible,
Yeah.
which ironically, as you get that earned media and you get about you and you get on gift lists and everything, more and more of
Mhm.
that snowball effect. So while those first couple are very hard, but once that ball gets rolling, people will
Yeah.
begin to reach out to you, and you can get your brand out there.
No, wonderfully put, Ryan. understand how hard it is, but then once it clicks, it just clicks. But people think
Right.
it's you're an overnight sensation, but no one's an overnight sensation. It's all the
Nope,
hard
not
work
at all.
that led up to it. Yeah. I'd love to talk to you about yourself as an entrepreneur with you and your. I mean, what would you tell a young founder trying to bring their vision to life? What kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, I would say definitely go for it. The younger, the better.
Hmm.
Um, but from like an actual logistics standpoint, plan everything out from a worst
Hmm.
case scenario standpoint. The business plan of we'll do these number of sales on our website, then we'll be in these number of stores, et cetera, et cetera. Nothing's going to work
Right.
out the way you plan. So
Yep.
you'll
Yeah.
make sure you have back plans and backup plans to those backup plans. So from our case,
Hmm.
we launched Bougie Bakes back in October 2000. We threw up our website, and both Meg and I were working full time. So we had full time income coming in that we used to fund the business. And we didn't take on any funding until 2 years into the business. Once
Hmm.
we had an established business, once we had a
Yeah.
product market fit, and once we decided that we could generate enough sales that we didn't have to have income coming in as well as the investment. So I would just be very cautious. You don't have, like you said, nothing's an overnight success. So
Hmm.
if things take longer than you anticipated them taking, it's not because you're not doing a good job or it's not going. Things take a while to develop. So
Yeah.
have that patience, and if it doesn't work out, having those backup plans and that patience, it's not the end of the world, and
Yep.
you can do it for the next idea or your next business venture.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, your biggest learning experience to date has been, or is there anything you would have done differently?
uh, Piggybacking on the last question there, it's amazing how many things don't go as planned, but that goes
Yeah.
into the plan of having the backup plans and remaining calm, cool, collected. That it's just a hiccup and we'll get through it. And
Hmm.
another thing, we're in the baked goods business. Whatever your company will be, it's funny
Yeah.
that you're going to spend not a huge amount of time on the actual baked goods or in the baked goods space. There's
Right.
so much that goes into the business beyond
Yeah.
that, whether it's interviewing, HR, building your team,
Yeah.
SEO, finance, accounting. There's
Yeah.
so much that goes into business, especially as a lean company and founder, that
Hmm.
I this didn't anticipate being so many different things, but you get a real
Hmm.
sense of under the hood of your business of everything that's going on, and to maintain that as we grow.
Got it. Wonderful. Um, Next up, I'd love to ask this question: like, are there any books or publication or podcasts you tell your team or yourself as an entrepreneur to read or follow? Like, who motivates you? Who makes you think like, oh, outside the box? Because I think it's so important to have a team around you, but also
Yep.
have mentors and have people you could aspire and figure out next steps and help you plan. It takes a village.
Yeah. So I'm a big reader. I listen to a ton of podcasts. So I'll
Hmm.
rattle a couple off. I mean,
Yeah,
How I
please.
Built This probably is the most common one. Probably someone else on your show has suggested that, but if your listeners haven't, How I Built This with Guy Raz is awesome.
Mm.
Snacks Daily is a Robin Hood podcast, which gives
Mm.
you 3 or 4 easy news stories. So I think even as a
Hmm.
founder in a specific space, I think it's important to have a macro in the know standpoint of what trends are going on, what's going on in the market. So you obviously hone in on what your specific business is, but also have that 10,000-foot view of the world is very important.
Hmm.
Those are 2 podcasts I listen to quite often. Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard is also a great one.
Oh,
I
great.
recently discovered that he has all types of people on the show, generally successful, but you get a standpoint of, again, everything is not an overnight success. A lot of people have put
Hmm.
in hard work. So it's just generally interesting that, how people came to be and what lessons they've learned along the way. From a book standpoint, one that we actually give our team members is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. It's a great
Mm.
book that everybody's heard of
Hmm.
Nike. It's an easy
Hmm.
read, has a business aspect in there. A book I just finished, which is relevant to business, even though the title was that is Why Do We Sleep by Matthew Walker.
Mm,
Just how much and how
yep,
important sleep is, both from a health standpoint, but a business and productivity standpoint. And there's like crazy fun facts in that book that
absolutely.
I highly recommend that. If you want to read the book, I think Matthew Walker was on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Uh-huh.
Once you finish Jonathan's podcast, you can.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are just a
No,
couple. So yeah, I read and listen to stuff.
yeah, no, that's great, Ryan. I actually have that on my Audible. To finish out, why do we sleep? Yeah, or how do you sleep? Yeah, it's actually a great one.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And I'd love to hear this. Like, it's a new question I posed coming up with. Like, you hear this, all these catchphrases. Crypto funding, NFTs. Like, what do you think? Is this something that's gonna be part of your world, or you're just focused on consumer goods and a great product, a great sugar-free baked good? Like, what do you think, or is it something out of your view?
Personally, I'm big into crypto.
Mm,
I would love to somehow crypto into Bougie Bakes.
mm-hmm.
Currently, those worlds live separately, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think with the rise of NFTs, with the rise
Mm-hmm.
of popularity, I think down the road there'll be definitely some crossover event in crypto or NFTs. So nothing yet, but
Yeah.
being personally invested and involved in it, I think
Mm-hmm.
push for it.
No, that's good. Well, here's an idea. You get NFT a recipe, you know,
Yeah,
for Bougie Bakes. And someone can own the
I love
actual
it.
recipe.
I love it. Yeah, and I think there's opportunity. We sell
Yeah.
merch. Opportunity to do some sort of NFT with merch, or sky's the limit. We can
Yeah.
have a conversation on this. Uh, you know, we could dig into a bunch of different ideas.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, and going forward, what do you think is with Bougie Bakes? Do you think it's better as a company where you're just, you build like slowly and surely, you make it a great brand, or do you think you need to like accelerate growth and try to all different channels? Like, how do you view the next steps of how you want to build your business the next year or so for 2022?
Sure. I mean, we want to get in as many stores and on as many websites and as many places as possible, but we want to do it so we maintain the quality and able to
Hmm.
fill those orders. So it's a combination of growing quickly, but going back to my planning and thinking things out and what could go wrong, incorporating all. So while we want to be in every household tomorrow,
Hmm.
and we want to build it the right way. So seeing us a lot more in 2022, but I think it will take 2022 before we're everywhere and we're in house. Who knows? Maybe.
That's great. And just out of curiosity, I just always think it's a fun fact. Like, how did you come up with this spelling of bougie? Because there's other ways, like with a J. Yeah. I'm just curious. How did you come up with
I know.
this version with the G?
Discuss that. That's how
Yeah.
we've spelled it. I think the other
Right.
ways to spell it are interesting. But yeah,
Right.
that's we grew up spelling it. So
Yeah. People spell my name. It's like Jonathan could be with two H's, or who knows, like with an
yep,
extra
yep.
O at the end. I don't know. Yeah. Got it. Great. And Ryan, like, just finishing off, like, are there any questions you want me to answer from your perspective, or you need anything from me that I can help with?
Sure. I mean, you've been in the investing space for a while, both from a standpoint, both from an angel standpoint.
Hmm.
Are there any trends or things that you see with young companies or emerging companies that it flag that you've been down that road before? Because all your investments aren't going to work out. Some better than others. Is a
Hmm.
trend or a certain aspect, like such and such doesn't work for whatever reason, or is there anything like that?
Yeah, I think, like, especially when it comes to consumer and consumer goods or consumer tech, really it's all about growth, right?
Hmm.
Unfortunately, like, we're not in tech, or like we're not software as a service. It's not at a point where like, oh, you could trade on crazy multiples. Like, I had a company that got sold, it was only doing, let's say, 12 million. in sales, and it got
Right.
sold for like 165 million, which is crazy, the multiple, right? But in
Right.
food and beverage and what we're in, there's no way you're going to get sold for 20x,
Right.
10x, because it's all about the brand. Like when you look something at like Coca-Cola, they're not even going to look at you unless you're doing 200,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, well, we do scale. It doesn't make sense for us to take on. We could just build it ourselves. So the
Right.
question is, like, I always think about is, this company is, okay, how can we grow? Because like, growing 20% is great for your portfolio, but not for a startup. A
Right.
lot of times, like I have a partner who thinks, oh, you got every year, for the first 3 years. And that's great. That's crazy growth, right? You're going from like 1 million to 3 million to 9 million. And then maybe you double and
Right.
double. Like that's obvious. Okay. That's like a no brainer. You'll see like one of my portfolio companies is Olipop, and they're doing sales. Super Coffee, one of our doing great as well. But it takes time to build that. Like,
Right.
when you look at a company, you just figure out, well, how can I get an RR? Because here's the thing, Meg running the company all the way through, my person to help you grow. It takes a certain 100,000 revenue and 100,000 to a million month.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a fact. And so it's all about building. Show the trajectory of growth, you're going to get the money. I promise you that.
Right.
Whether it's me investing or I'll introduce to all my, they'll see that and it'll be like, wow, because you can't just like build that organically. Like when I look at it's going to be four things. It's going to be team, which when I looked at you, great team, you and your wife, two was like, do you have any sort of IP or doing something unique? And you did. You were doing something where like you're doing baked goods with no sugar, or in a high end
Mm-hmm.
way. And that was different. And then you look at your revenue growth. I mean, some people think that's the same, but it's not necessarily the same. They have like a tremendous amount of customers who's interested and they're buying as much, but you know what? You're going to find them and you're going to get them have recurring down the road. Maybe they only buy during the holidays. Maybe they only buy during their
Right.
birthdays. That's okay. Gifting, depending on what time of year it is, right? But it doesn't have to be like, oh, it has to be a set number every week, because we don't think like that. It's not like I'm buying razor blades every day, even in that
Right.
example of razor blades. Like
Right.
you just find, because you're constantly marketing, you're constantly growing. So when I tell my, my portfolio companies, my founders, don't get frustrated because, we're going to know, like, with a certain amount of time, if you have the growth, or it's okay if you're just a cash cow business, get to
Right.
profitability. That's just as good, and you can pay the bills and move forward, right? We're not just looking for like, oh, to be the next Google. It doesn't have to be that way. Building a
Right.
brand takes time.
Exactly. So how much does
Mhm.
or doesn't who are other investors in a business affect
Mm.
your investing in a business or not?
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of funny because like there's kind of this mentality where like, oh, well that person's in, okay, I'm in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's that FOMO, right? Just like in real life, there's FOMO.
Right.
And so we look at them as like, oh, but you know what I've learned along the way, Ryan? Most of it of the time, like we're making the best educated guess we can. And
Right.
it might be just a great feeling. It might be just like, oh, I believe in your philosophy as a company, your ethos, and that's why I want to support you, right? It's just funny. I've heard people make investments for like, it's not like one key number or one key metric that sold them over the top. It was
Right.
a combination of things. And so when I do diligence now, it's totally different than I used to do diligence. It's like, oh, that's a great idea. Here's a check.
Right.
You can't like you're going to be a lot more losers than winners if you do it that way. But nowadays it's like you do want to have people on your side. You want to make sure like, am I looking at this correct? I mean, should we
Mm-hmm.
eat less sugar? Like, yes, we probably should, right? I mean, better for you brands are definitely in vogue, right? Definitely here to stay. So
Right.
really, also, it's a type of investor, right? Sometimes will people be like, oh, well, this person is on the cap table, and I'm like, well, they don't know anything about food. Like, that's a nice brand, a celebrity
Right.
name, or like in other industries, but what do they know about this? So it doesn't mean as much. It's just money. I care about investors like, oh, they're going to help you TikTok, for example. Oh, well, they're part of the bike dance team. Like, that's good money to have. Like, they're going marketing, or this person has something that you want to double up on the same kind of investors. When you look at your cap, it's not just one of the same. It's different people that help you in different ways.
Right. Yeah, that's investor, but also a founder standpoint. So like even as a founder, you have to just keep your head down and do what you're doing, and because doing is going to work, and not let the huge raises and all these perceived successes get in your way, because you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. And most of the time behind the scenes are more chaotic than you're behind the scenes.
Oh, absolutely. I heard something great one time. I stole this from another investor. You know what? In the beginning, you're going to sell us on the sizzle, of the steak. And eventually it's going to be, it tastes any good. You can only sell people, like when you're watching a commercial, like, wow, look at that. Like, how, like, you're looking at, literally, if you use that kind of reference, and like, and then you taste it once, and then you keep bringing people back in.
Right.
And that's the key. That's the key. Like I think like, even like as fund manager, I can raise money. Fun. But if the proof's not in the pudding and I can't actually return, I'm not going to raise a second fund. It's just the truth of the matter. So we're all in some way, shape, or form.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, Ryan, thank you so much. Thank you for being here and like giving my audience your experience. I think they're going to love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Jonathan. And if your audience wants to check us out, we're bougiebakes.com, and then at bougiebakes on all the major platforms.
Great, wonderful. And they're going to be at your nearby supermarket soon enough. We're going to help you get there.